Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where everything you're about to hear and see has been done in one take. I'm your host, the One Take Man. Today I find myself on BritMonkey's website. For those of you who are unaware, BritMonkey is a YouTuber who talks about questions of public administration and politics from a centrist or pragmatic perspective. And and I've seen a few of his videos. The one on Japan Rail is particularly good. So if you want, if you want a recommendation, you can go ahead on that. But there are some points where I find him to be a little bit too, a little bit of a dumbass. For example, he in his video on housing, he says that Clement Attlee's housing policy really makes him the worst prime minister that Great Britain's ever had. I'm not sure if Liz Truss was already in office by that time, but still, that really kind of showcases that showcases not necessarily his priorities, but the fact that he may occasionally be prone to exaggerations and the like. But nevertheless, one thing that he started out, and which seems to have gained traction on at least on Twitter, independent of his fan base, or at least as far as I can tell, independent of his fan base, is the 2020s political compass. And I thought I would take this over the course of a video, and just in general also comment upon the compass itself. Now let's see the description. In this era of post-materialism, we're not exactly in a post-material era. People still need food, shelter, and clothing. And and the reason it seems like it's post-material is because there are various layers of administration and red tape, so to speak, that go between the average person and material. We're not exactly peasants making scratchy rags and eating whatever grows out of the ground, for example. But but material in that sense will still matter all the time. So in all time, maybe we have a different relationship to it, and that's why it's Brit Monkey calls this an era of post-materialism. But jury's still out on that. Where the traditional left-right divide has given way to more vibes-based politics, there is still somewhat of a left-right divide, but the divide has taken on a different shape. It has molded itself within vibes-based politics. So outright denying it, or saying that it doesn't really exist or doesn't have any applicability anymore, isn't exactly true. If anything, I would say that one particular paradigm of the left-right divide doesn't exactly work, but that doesn't mean that a new paradigm that follows this same divide doesn't exist. This test hopes to refresh the outdated policy-oriented political compass tests to be more up-to-date with the real issues of the 2010s. You're replacing one problem with another because the policies that are relevant for the 2020s that I called 2010s for some reason a few just a minute ago will not still be valid will not still be valid or noticeable within the 2080s, for example. So in that sense, you can, or maybe even the 2040s. So in that sense, this compass test will have to be renewed basically once every generation if you are to really think about it. The real difference between left and right isn't really what policies they champion, though that does factor into it, but rather the policies that they champion factor into into their broader understanding of human potential. I might get into this now, but whatever. I don't know. Did you get that? Did you listen? Okay, never mind. I just got a notification, so I hope it didn't pick up. Anyway, let's see. The test has 64 questions. This will take a while, and scores you on 4 axes. Chud versus woke. Identity politics and culture were issues. Noted. Tech bro versus neo-Luddite. AI, crypto, biohacking, and futurism. Hope Pilled versus Doomer, The System, Conspiracies, and Public Revolt. Davos versus Dubai, Globalism and Nationalism. I have my thoughts on all of these topics, and I think we'll get to them over the course of the campus, over the course of this test. So, with that preamble out of the way, let's get into it. Starting with woke versus chud, trans women are women and trans men are men. Strongly agree. How many genders are there? Gender is a spectrum with many possible answers. At least 3. Don't play games with me, kid. This is basically what Biden answered. I don't know. 2, and transgenderism is a mental illness. Yeah. So we got Michael Knowles and Joe Biden right here. I'm gonna go with the academic description. Israel is committing a genocide against the Palestinian people. It's been, it's been live broadcasted all around the world. It is the case. I think alternative girls are sexy, trashy, no opinion, pretty. It's wrong to objectify women in a political quiz. Yes. I support affirmative action programs to fix systemic injustices in society. Strongly agree. Hate speech is free speech. Hate speech is harassment. Fuck you. My country requires a mass deportation of most, if not all, immigrants. Strongly disagree. And not just because I would be one of the immigrants deported. Those immigrants have the freedom to be where, have freedom of movement, and they can be wherever they want to be in the world. But so does everyone else. Like someone who really loves their country is still allowed to leave the country, maybe even resettle somewhere else. Maybe because they find another country that they love more for whatever reason. That's good. The fact that people can move around and settle is good. I cannot emphasize that enough. In today's society, women have it easier than men. I'm going to say strongly disagree. I teeter between disagree and strongly disagree because there are some areas where they have some advantages, but still, when you look at some broader aspects, yeah, the game is still wrongly weighted, so to speak. The primary cause of crime is poverty and deprivation. Strongly agree. It's been the case for all of human history. There are too many crackheads on public transport. Well, what would you rather have them do? Drive? Do you want to kill people? Because that's how you kill people. Like, seriously, let them take the bus. It's not like they, it's not like that'll lead to them veering off and killing someone. Homeschooling should be banned. Strongly agree. Forced diversity in media has gone too far. Bitch, please. My country should pay reparations for the descendants of people we have wronged in the past. Strongly agree. J.K. Rowling is bankrolling a genocide of transgender people, a children's author with shitty opinions, I have no opinion on her, an icon of British culture and defender of women's rights. A dumb foid. Wow, you really went there. I'm going with the one objective answer here. Oversimplified / minimalist brand logos have gone too far. Strongly agree, I don't know, disagree. Who cares? You'll notice I try not to, yeah, you'll notice that my answers are pretty extreme, but I'm pretty sure not all of my answers will be extreme, but I do very much want to avoid the center options. Sex work, pornography, prostitution, etc. is real work. Strongly agree. Tech bro versus Neo-Luddite. I have used ChatGPT or a similar chatbot. Never. and I do have some disagreements about with my mother about how she has occasionally used ChatGPT, or other chatbots. Thing is, I do recognize that there are situations in which you can ethically use them, but that still doesn't deny the back end, the various back end issues that the plagiarism machine brings with itself. Ozempic and similar GLP-1 drugs are a miracle drug, useful medicine, I don't know, letting people cheat at losing weight, reinforcing negative body stereotypes. I really, yeah, this is one case where I would say I don't know. I'm gonna say useful, maybe. I'm gonna go with useful, fuck it. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are going to replace fiat money as the global currency, a useful tool, just a form of gambling, completely useless. Completely useless. Well, they do have some level of utility, but that level of utility is very much socially conditioned by whether other people, other people accept it. And let's face it, a lot of other currencies are much more accepted. Right now, whereas right now Bitcoin is really just a matter of gambling, of being able to extract value where where it didn't exist in the past. And and I and also keep in mind what I said about post-materialism. That is one of the ways through which Bitcoin kind of creates the illusion of post-materialism, because it creates value away from the material, but it still relies upon the material in order to be made to work. and also when you look at it, when you look into things like how it creates value, well, another thing it creates is inflation. And whenever government-backed currencies do that, that's called, the supporters of Bitcoin typically say that's bad. But when Bitcoin itself causes, but if Bitcoin were to be placed in that same position, and if someone were to overpay with Bitcoin to the extent that inflation would also occur, I doubt they would be as critical towards this. NFTs, or non-fungible tokens, are the future of art, a form of digital ownership, a gimmick, stupid ugly monkeys, and a waste of money. Yeah. Now, admittedly, not all NFTs were those monkey illustrations, but they are still pretty much all of them a waste of money. Generative AI is very useful, overrated, making society worse. Very much making society worse. Were you vaccinated for COVID-19? Both shots plus booster, both shots, one shot, didn't get vaxxed, all vaccines are poison. Both shots and booster. Humanity needs to reduce our overall energy consumption to protect the ecosystem. Strongly agree. Like, yeah, there are some people who exist in energy shortage or energy deprivation, but the energy that does exist and that is produced is often used in wasteful ways, such as the aforementioned Bitcoin and AI. And therefore, if you really want to support their lives, you really have to approach it more from a materialistic perspective and give those people the means to support themselves. And that includes also how energy is used within society. Lab-grown meat is an amazing invention that should be adopted as soon as possible. A good thing, probably not as good as real meat. Disgusting and should be illegal. I'm curious. I'm gonna say a good thing, though, for the most part. I would take a drug that slows or stops the aging process. I am potentially curious, but I don't think anything will come of it. Should something come of it, though, I'm gonna say agree. AI robots will be doing most, if not all, human jobs within 10 years. I strongly disagree. For reasons I won't get into now, because fuck, the economy is too complicated to explain over the course of doing this test. We should not be spending billions on space travel when there are people starving here on Earth. I low-key agree. Nevertheless, there are still revelations and inventions and innovations that are helpful, not just that result not just from space travel, but also from the pursuit of space travel. For example, one of my favorite jobs that I ever took, and one that I actually worked at before I started being a YouTuber, was as an FMEA coordinator. FMEA is failure mode and effects analysis. It is an analysis procedure that NASA itself actually pioneered in the 60s in order to plan the Apollo missions. And it has since trickled out to pretty much the rest of engineering. And I can say I very much and there's a reason I describe that job as being my favorite of the jobs that I've taken so far. It is one where I found my capabilities to be most effectively used. So in that sense, I think that there is utility that can derive from space travel. But if we're talking about a broader degree of utility for most people, then it perhaps makes sense to decrease funding for space operations in order to ensure that starvation or famine are eliminated on Earth. And if we're talking private space travel, well, That is just an aberration for a whole bunch of different reasons. And I would absolutely agree that should not be something that gets spent upon. I consume online pornography daily, weekly, monthly, rarely, never. Yeah, kinda. Mostly. I won't go into too many details though. I support building more nuclear energy power plants. Uh, I'm gonna say no, because right, and I'm not only talking, and my reasoning for that isn't necessarily the reasoning most people would use about, about 1 in a million disasters like 3 Mile Island or Chernobyl or Fukushima. The problem is that they have a huge upfront costs, and they only start actually uh, paying off or really delivering the kind of energy that would, that they would need in, in 10 or 20 years. Whereas other solutions are more immediate, so to speak. Like, for example, within that same time frame, you can open up a whole bunch of wind farms, solar farms, and you will be able to uh, you'll be able to cover a lot more energy generation needs. AI automation should not come at the cost of jobs and livelihoods. I Do I go with agree or strongly agree? I'm gonna say agree, because right now, because this question kind of has the component of existing jobs and livelihoods. It's a part that is perhaps unspoken, but it is something that that I choose to read into it. I may be wrong, but that's my choice. And the thing about existing jobs and livelihoods is, if you've read David Graeber's Bullshit Jobs, which I haven't, but I am paraphrasing a little bit, then you'll know that some jobs solely exist to keep people busy. And really, when it comes to things that are productive, there are ways you can there are things you can do that actually boost productivity, and that includes also this kind of busy work. So, moving ahead, prediction markets are the closest thing we have to a truth machine and knowing the future. Tools for collecting information, just gambling, bad and should be banned. I have no idea what prediction markets are. If we're talking futures and the like, I'm gonna say that is just gambling. Or if anything, anything is the kind of officialized corruption that leads to the wide scale issues of capitalism that under which a lot of people currently suffer, even if they don't recognize that as a failure of capitalism. If we're talking something if we're talking something else, like I don't know, uh, stock markets or stuff like or stuff like betting, um, I'm gonna go with just gambling, because again, I don't want to go no opinion, but I do want to say but I do want to give my because I do have I'm pretty sure I do have some thoughts on the topic, even if I'm not entirely familiar with it. Air conditioning is essential for human civilization, important to maintain comfortable temperatures, overrated, unnecessary, wasteful American extravagance. I am recording this video in the middle of the major European heat wave of June 2026. I'm not sure how it will be called retroactively, if it receives any additional information. And let me just say, it's warmer in my house than it is outside. It has been on a whole bunch of occasions this weekend. So I understand the significance of air conditioning in in a vacuum, but but calling it essential or important is not really something is not really something I really hold to. If air conditioning were part of some kind of uh broader climatization effort, then you could say it has some level of utility. As it stands right now, however, it's overrated. Hope pill versus doomer. There is no point planning for the future because climate change will ruin the planet in the next few decades anyway. Strongly disagree. Like, yeah, climate change will, will affect, but will affect us in significant ways potentially as well. But that doesn't, but if we still want not just humanity to exist, but if we want our experiences and our recognitions and our findings to still contribute positively to some kind of, future society, then we do need to plan for the future, plan against climate change, for example. So yeah, you still need to do that. I strongly disagree. The only way you can truly be safe and secure in the modern day is by being rich. I'm gonna say disagree rather than strongly disagree, because there are, ways those who aren't rich can still, can still find some level of safety, but they aren't really effectively supported by public administration. I still want to make sure that those methods are made available through public administration. I trust that mainstream news outlets are telling the truth. Disagree. They are telling the truth occasionally, but even when they do so through their own biased lens. So as such, you really need to filter through. Even the most objective sources still have some level of bias. The best days of my country are behind it. Mm, I'm gonna say disagree. Like, yeah, there have been decent conditions in the past that have led to my country, however I define it, to to end up becoming a powerhouse from a cultural or industrial perspective. But that doesn't mean that similar peaks won't be reached at at some point in the future. Even if climate change ends up having a massive detrimental effect, better days are still possible. We are not being told the truth about history. Yes, we are not being told the full truth about what actually happened in the past and how that still affects us. Though history is primarily about the narratives that are spun around it, and you can spin a whole bunch of different narratives. So and so as such, if you're given a narrative that isn't that isn't plausible, or that doesn't match up with existing or known findings, you are very much not told the truth. Voting achieves nothing. Strongly disagree here. I like Donald Trump. Fuck that piece of shit. Looting is a legitimate form of political expression. Those who make peaceful protests inevitable, make violent protests impossible, make violent protests inevitable, said Martin Luther King Jr. And that is very much the case. An elite group of people have a secret plan to introduce a totalitarian government. That unfortunately is the case. Like, keep in mind Peter Thiel and a whole bunch of other Silicon Valley idiots who plan to use surveillance tech to exercise control on the rest of humanity. That is very much something that is that exists and it has influence, and therefore something that has to be combated. France did a good job in banning Palantir for its endeavors. It would be nice if other countries also grew a spine in such a way as to make that happen, and make similar bans happen. It's funny when people with shitty political views die. Yeah, I'm a shitty person, I know, but I'm but I do have to say I do find myself just a little bit relieved when things like that happen. Incremental progress is a better way to achieve goals than demanding immediate radical change. Flatly better in every instance, not necessarily the case. Shoplifting, online piracy, and fair hopping is good. Like, there are lots of instances where I really don't care. Let's see. It's a bad thing that multi-billionaires exist. Strongly agree. The digital nomad lifestyle is appealing to me. I'm gonna say agree. It does have its perks, and I do say I think it would be interesting to me to be able to go all around, to go all around the world and and find local cultural enrichments. But thing is, that has to work within a within a broader work-life balance, which I so far have not been able to find a solution to. So, so I'm not going to say strongly agree, just agree. Gross domestic product is a bad metric for measuring countries' prosperity. Yes, very much so. I would fight and die for my tribe. I'm just gonna put a soft agree here. It's interesting that the quiz says tribe rather than something else. I wonder how that is defined. Davos versus Dubai. The system of government pursued by China is one that we should emulate. I'm gonna say disagree. There are some some positive aspects to the way China is put together, but but to have that entire government, no, not a good idea. Western countries want to keep global South countries poor. Yes, that is very much the case. Import tariffs are necessary to protect jobs and wealth. Strongly disagree. If I could, I would overturn an election result that I didn't like. No, I don't want that. Unless the election itself was fraud, was somehow fraudulent. But in general, let people steward their bad decisions. I'll put it that way. Once people of my political view obtain power, we should make it harder for the public to vote us out. Low-key disagree, because the thing about politics is we should kill bankers and we should kill ethnic minorities are also political views, and depending on where you stand, preventing people who hold those views from who hold these political views from gaining power is a good thing. And as such, there are certain political views that are outright criminal, and I think it is fair to and I think it is fair to keep those people, to keep those people out. But when it comes to keeping certain people in, or rather, people of my political view, yeah, yeah, I don't know. Say what you will about it. I think that if people of my my political view obtain power, it, I do I do have a vested interest in making sure that they stay in power and that they maintain the system of governance that I support. So for that reason, I'm gonna say disagree rather than strongly disagree. I would surrender my right to vote in exchange for a guaranteed high standard of living. Strongly disagree. If my country is going to accept immigrants, they should primarily be doing work that native citizens do not want to do. Strongly disagree. They should do whatever it is they want, because that is it is the job of the government of whatever place they are to be to support them in doing so, because that local government acts for the benefit of the people within a territory, even if those people are immigrants. I support the death penalty. Why do you want the government to decide whether you die? Strongly disagree. Online content that conflicts with my values should be blocked. Well, a lot of the online content that conflicts with my values is basically just harassment. So I am tempted with saying agree. But however, you can very much just block that harassment while still keeping political discussion open. So disagree? Yeah, just gonna go with disagree. Broadcast media should not question the government's decisions. Strongly disagree. There's a saying, my country for right or wrong. The continuation of that saying is, if right, to be kept on the right path, if wrong, to be corrected, to be brought back to the right path. Also, I think there is a quote by Theodore Roosevelt that says that to say that the president has immunity from criticism is very much traitorous and unpatriotic. So, so yeah, broadcast media should question, should be able to question the government's, decision. Should be able to point out when the government does something, does something poorly. Certain ethnic, religious, or social groups should be given preferential treatment in society and law. Strongly disagree. Women in my country should be incentivized to have more children. Strongly disagree. Or rather, let's just say soft disagree, because you can't, because you can't have incentives that are, broadly helpful otherwise. And I'm not just talking about stuff like tax cuts, but I'm talking primarily about places within. I'm primarily talking about things like daycares or better schools and stuff like that. That is, those are on the one hand incentives for children, but they are also good things to have as a country. So for that reason, and therefore, if you want to incentivize with that, I'm more likely to have I'm more likely to be fine with that. But if you want to incentivize in other ways, then that is a strong disagree. So this simple disagree is somewhere in the middle of that. Having human rights means nothing if you are poor and starving. This is a soft agree, really, because because you should still be able to you should still have or rather the government should rather the governance of whatever country, territory, administration you live in or under should still respect should still respect the should still respect the rights you have. But among those rights include the right to not be and those also include not being poor and starving. So if you are poor and starving, then you already don't have don't have human rights, or you don't have your rights respected. So saying that having rights means nothing if you don't have rights, yeah. What can I say? Some people must die in order for my political ideals to be implemented. Millions agree, disagree, strongly agree. I don't think anyone should die in order for in order for my particular policy to for my desired policies to agree. But I'm pretty sure that at least some people would rather die than see my political ideals be implemented. If that is their desire, then I'm not gonna I'm not gonna hold. If they would rather die, and if they prefer death, then let them have death. Whatever. It is none of our business what another country does within its own borders. Disagree. If another country is, because if another country is oppressing or killing people, well then I think it is in our best interest to act. Our being like a universal humanity, our best interest to to make sure that that those abuses do not continue, and do not continue, and therefore that particular country that does these that oppresses and murders stops stops doing so, because we're very much signed up to do so. Admittedly, this does have some some less than pleasant consequences, such as, for example, interventionism. Armed interventionism, where we see that people practice have certain morally neutral or outright benign practices that we for some reason find less than pleasant, and in which case you could justify invasion, but ultimately in broader lines, a disagree is still a good approach. We should not partake in international agreements that force us to reduce our CO2 emissions until we are ready. Strongly disagree. And in fact, you not being ready might actually be a good argument for joining such such initiatives, because if your infrastructure is is not particularly well built out, you can't expect to build up one that one that produces a lot of CO2 emissions only to then replace it with one that produces less. You are better off building the one that with less CO2 emissions from the start. Okay, and that was at 64 questions. What is my result? I am 100% woke, of course. I'm 34% tech bro, 66% neo-Luddite, 52% hope build, 58% doomer. Really? 58%? How'd you get there? 81% Davos, 19% Dubai. Now your closest match is Ed Zitron. Who the fuck is Ed Zitron? Oh well. I guess I have a little bit of homework to do. Oh well, I'll get to it. Until then, however, thank you for your attention. If you enjoyed watching me, well then please like the video, maybe even share it wherever you think other people will also like the video. If there is anything you'd like to add, either to the quiz itself or to my answers, well, that is what the comment section is for. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe. And ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. I also have a main channel where I primarily talk about the book medium and and various releases therein. A link to which you can find in the description down below, right past my social media links, which I also suggest you check out should you choose to. If you are not interested in my thoughts on the print medium, well then I suggest you stay on this channel and go through my extensive backlog, where aside from the occasional video on political topics, I do primarily a lot on television and cinema, with occasional break for gaming or game-related stuff. And yeah, that was it for me. So until next time, I have been the One Take Man.